Thank you, Jennifer. That was awesome. Show me love. So, made me want to go right to the meat of the message instead of start in the beginning, and so I'm just going to do that. Joel Goldsmith said if you're having trouble with somebody in your life, that you can bring them forward in your consciousness for a minute or two every night when you do your prayers before you go to bed, and you can call them forward in consciousness, their energy forward, and you can know that that connection is made in God mind. And if you will do that with the people that you have challenges with, over time, when you see that person, that God-mind connection will overshadow your humanity. You will recognize at the level of the higher power that you have been making a connection. So Emmett Fox said, the doors of the heart open inward, meaning that we have to go inside before we can come out, and those doors open this way, not that way. So to step into our heart is to really step into the wisdom of consciousness. I'm very curious if the real call to love isn't to grow in our love of our humanity. Spiritually, we're already whole, perfect, and complete. Spiritually, the power and presence of the divine is perfect. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't lack or long for anything. It is full and whole and complete. So we're not really doing anything to our spirituality. We're doing something to our humanity in our evolution, in our growth, and in our understanding. So, we all have reasons for bad behavior, and it's hard to love or like bad behavior, humanity, and it's kind of easy to go to the spiritual connection and get that spiritually love is infinite, spiritually love is ever present, spiritually love is the source of all of life, but it's humanity that makes it more challenging to connect with that love and bring it forth. And I would imagine that the first place that we are invited to maybe go to that connection and pray every night for a new relationship is with ourselves and our own humanity. That we may grow to love ourselves even in our errors. So, I like my little dog is just adorable, and it's hard not to love him when you see him. He's so cute. But this morning when I had to clean up the poop that he left in the house during the night, or when UPS decided, they're delivering all the time now, and so he flies at the front door making this noise that is just ear-piercing. But it doesn't diminish my love for him. But if a human being were to act like that around me, I am here to tell you that I could tell you that I loved them spiritually, but I didn't necessarily like them humanly. Well, myself, I miss the mark all the time. I court the divine, I court the higher power, I practice prayer work, I practice being kind, loving, and patient. Last week, I had a couple of session clients that were too close to my own story. And they were close enough to my own story that by the end of a couple of days of work, I was grumpy. And grumpy meant that anybody who... I think I was kind of feral. If you tried to touch me, you might come back with a bloodied hand because I just might turn and attack at any moment. And it took patience and peace to drop in and ask myself what's going on. It takes a lot more than patience and peace to love myself when I miss the mark. What would happen if 7.2 billion people decided, well, we could say today or we could say next Sunday because it's Valentine's Day, that they were going to love themselves? They were going to love and forgive themselves. They were going to forgive themselves from the past. They were going to say that, it took everything, all those experiences to bring me to this place right here, right now. And this is the day that the Lord has made. This is the opportunity now, this moment now. Now, all of us have a default, and that default might be well explained, but if your default is feral, it doesn't excuse bad behavior to simply know why you have bad behavior. And life has a tendency to squeeze us from time to time, and whatever's in there is what's going to come out. And so if your default place is feral, like maybe mine is, then the spiritual path is about beginning to love myself as that individual. And knowing that from loving myself, I have the power then to work with myself and maybe change. But if I deny, if I ignore, if I pretend that God's love doesn't begin with me, then I can be very busy out in the world. I can be busy noticing when you're feral. I can be busy noticing when your story's too close to mine. I can be busy saying what's right and wrong in the world, and I can explain why I would come to that conclusion, but that might not excuse the behavior of being in judgment and criticism. So we believe in this teaching that God imparted itself as each one of us, that it is within us and that it already gave us all the love, all the peace, all the wisdom, all the compassion that we would ever need. That it's not outside of us, that it doesn't require a shift or a change in people's attitudes, in our bank account, or in our bodies. I raised children. My daughter is here today, 37, 38, around late 30s, around there. So when they were in high school and they wanted to read those fashion magazines that had these stick people in them, I decided to take issue with that, and I decided to talk to them about loving their bodies and not setting up models for themselves of something that they weren't. But never did it occur to me that the place really to practice loving body would be an invitation every day for the rest of my life as I age. I just didn't get that, In my 30s with young kids, I thought, well, if you want to be thin or you want to be healthy or you want to exercise, you begin by loving yourself. But that loving yourself, where we talk about spirit being infinite, the love of self is truly infinite. And I don't know that there's ever a place where you would get to be and say, I've done it. When I very first took my first Science of Mind class, we were taught to pray for things, and I was only 10 weeks in this philosophy. I went to church on Palm Sunday, and by the week after Easter, I was in a class. And in that class were 150 other people in a beginning foundation class, and we were being taught to pray. Now, someplace in my being I already knew, wasn't there only one prayer, and that was to be loving? But I had no idea that day that 30 years later, that would still be the prayer that I can't measure the manifestation of, and I can't say, I got it. I can say, I get to keep working on it. I get to continue working on it. There's something inside of each one of us that is all the love that you would ever seek. But there are barriers between the intellect and the heart. So in ancient Egypt, when they embalmed people, and because they did that, we know some things about that culture. So in ancient Egypt, they thought that the heart and the soul and the intellect all were heart. They were all associated with the organ of the heart. They thought that the only reason that you had a brain, and they took it out of you when you died, and they took it out of you through your nose, but you were dead, so it didn't matter. And the only thing they thought you had a brain for was to create the other stuff that comes out your nose. They thought the heart was this sacred center of everything. And so not only did they leave the heart in the body, but they placed a symbol over the grave of the person in the heart. And that symbol is like a vase that is shaped like a sheep's heart, because they knew something about the vessels, and they believed that from your heart everything flowed. Paramahansa Yogananda, in his flyer on Can We Talk to God, said, have you ever noticed that the human body looks just like a 5-point star? Because just like the stars in the cosmos, the human body has been made whole, perfect, and complete by God-mind. To talk to that power, that presence, is to go within to our higher wisdom self. One more fascinating thing is current research can still not find the emotions. They have no idea where or what emotions are. They imagine that emotions are the product of firing of synapses in the brain. They understand the brain's affecting feelings, and they're beginning to understand the brain generating thought. But they don't really understand emotion. Now, Valentine's Day is an emotional holiday. It's not a spiritual holiday unless we make it one. And if we make it one and we said that the sweetheart that I'm going to court is my higher wisdom self to my humanity, I'm going to set the intention to fall in love with my humanness, with all its strength and all of its frailties. Because I don't believe that if God created everything out of itself and named it good and very good, I don't see that that's a mistake. If that's a gift for us to kind of collide into each other. Whenever I get really good, so every once in a while I start thinking I'm good at texting. I start thinking nobody's misunderstood my text because I really understand, sending telegraphic messages. I don't put any emotion, any charge into that. I can just see you at 3. So can't interpret see you as 3 as I like you or don't like you, just facts. And as soon as I have the thought that I'm good at texting, someone will say, that's not what I meant. Or, what did you mean by that? Our humanity. Boy, texting is a wonderful place for our humanity to bump into each other. What if that's a divine idea? So the World Parliament of Religions this year had a really big push, or last year had a really big push for the feminine being represented in religions. And they took a really big attack on how patriarchal religions have downplayed the feminine. And they took a big attack on all of the global problems that we are facing. And the way that they looked at those global problems was not like there was a solution, which I absolutely know without a doubt that there are solutions, that miracles will continue to unfold in whatever we have done to the planet, that we can undo and learn from and do differently. The end of their talking about how to awaken the feminine, and they were really talking about the feminine energy, the loving energy, the receptive energy, and they were talking about it as woman. And they said that the best way that we can all go about healing our planet is to recognize that she is alive, she's not an inanimate object, and to include her every night in our prayers. Wow. include her every night in our prayers. Now, I don't think that it's feminine or masculine. I think it's an attribute of the Spirit that says we are compassionate and we care for one another. It's not because you're a man or you're a woman. It's because you have the sensitivity to drop into your center. One way to look at our center is, or our heart space, is the infinity symbol. It can come up and wrap around here and then come down, wrap around there. And it can cross right here. So this part and this part and this part connect right here. And so then if you want to know how you're doing, just watch the words that come out of your mouth. And if you're feral every once in a while, you shock yourself about the words that come out of your own mouth. It's like, oh my gosh. And there's an idea for all of us that if I just kill that thing, it'll go away. If I have an ectomy for that nastiness. Instead of if I learn to love that about myself. So there's a story, an old story, of a large piece of land that a man bought, and had an old dilapidated farmhouse on it, and it had an enormous tree, orange tree, in the center of the property. So as the winter was coming, the man got ready to prepare his land so that the winter would hit, and then in the spring he would be able to build this house. And he got an architect, he designed the house that he wanted, he picked the place in the land that he wanted it to be, and there was only one problem. There was this huge orange tree right in the middle of where he was going to have his house done. So he contracted to have a contractor come and with a tractor bulldoze and get rid of that orange tree. It hadn't bloomed in a gazillion years. It was ugly and gnarly. The base of it didn't produce anything. It hadn't looked like anything. So as winter was coming, the tractor went out there to clear the land, and it smacked into that tree, and it smacked into that tree, and it smacked into that tree. And it didn't budge. So he went and cleared the rest of the land. And when he got the courage up again, he went back and he pushed at that tree and he hit that tree. Pretty soon, winter was coming, and that tree had gouges in it where the tractor had hit it repeatedly, and it had never budged. He told the owner that he was unable to remove, that the winter was coming, and that they would try again after winter to see if they could get the big tree out. So the owner went out after the winter had come and gone and spring is beginning to bloom around, and he goes up and he looks at that tree, and in every gash of the tree is new growth. Sometimes that's what happens to us. What's inside of us doesn't come out until something bumps us or shakes us. I loved it when Michael Beckwith said, if you see somebody whose life is really a mess, you can say, oh, greater good's coming to you soon, instead of, oh, you poor thing, what was in your consciousness that created all that crap? Because really, in our humanity is where our divinity gets to come through. There's a story of the little boy who is absolutely an old soul and knows almost the answer to everything. And the sage hears about the little boy and his wisdom. And the sage says, bring that little boy to me. I want to ask him these questions. And so the little boy came and sat before the sage. The day went on, and he asked questions. And the little boy had a big heart, and he just understood about life. Finally, the little boy said, I've played your game long enough, let's play mine, and let's play hide and go seek. And the sage said, okay, and instantly the little boy was gone. The sage hunted everywhere for him. He looked high and low. He looked through the palace. He looked everywhere he could think of. He could hear the little boy, but he couldn't find him. Finally, he said, I give up. I give up. Where are you? And the little boy, pop, appeared again. He said, the little boy said to the sage, you think you're so smart, but you didn't look first in your heart. How can you find anything if you don't look to your heart first? That really is this morning's lesson. Our higher power lives in our hearts. We have dings in our hearts and we have holes in our heart, but that isn't God's design. That's ours. That's where we've protected ourselves. 2016 is a sweet 16, the year of the key and everything. And I got my key for a Christmas present and I'm all excited. And a couple of people have said, so what does your key mean? And I realized this morning as I put my key on, it means that I can open the cage that I keep my heart in. It's a key to my own heart. Because if I go in and connect with my higher power, then I am guided to love unlimitlessly, to love unconditionally. We have been made in the image and likeness of God. God is not made in our image and likeness. God is not judgmental. God is not keeping score of what you did or didn't do. God is not waiting to punish you. Consequences do a perfect job of that. So God doesn't have any business about that. God has already given each of us everything that we would ever need in the center of our being. But if we don't use it first on ourselves, then we don't have anything to give to each other. Any place that you long to experience more good in your life, give more of that, whatever it is. So if your prosperity, your finances are not working, I don't really understand how giving loosens that flow, but it does. To give is to receive. In the process of giving is to open yourself to accept the influx of the divine. God is pouring itself out in every single moment to the degree that each one of us accept and say yes and move forth on it. There's a story of a dragon who was very, very old and tired. He'd fought many, many battles, and he had gashes all over him. No one loved him, no one cared about him, and no one wanted him. And he was laying in the dirt, and he was going to die. A small boy came up to him and said, "Who are you?" And the dragon told him who he was. And the little boy said, "Why are you laying there?" And the dragon said, "I fought too many battles to pick my head up again." And as the little boy continued to ask and care, something happened to the dragon. A soft glow began to come through the gashes in his armor. As the little boy talked more and more, caring about the dragon, the glowing grew. Pretty soon the little boy stepped back and said, "Can you see yourself?" And the dragon looked around, lifting his head just enough to notice that all the battle wounds and all the scars of his life were breaks in his armor where the light of love and peace and harmony was glowing through. Each of us can be the dragon. Each of us has within the center of our heart that love, that light, that infinite possibility. And most of us have enough gashes in us that there are openings for that light to shine forth and shine out. A loving heart is God's gift to you. The practice is the journey from here to here, that it comes out here and it begins with you. God bless you for choosing church. So I invite you to take this moment and turn within. Love and gratitude fills our being within for no reason other than we accept. We accept that God has created us each out of itself. We accept that it has poured in us everything that we would ever seek, need, or long for, and that it longs for us to allow it to come out. We can take the easy path, the path of I'm made in the image and likeness, and I open my heart doors and let the love within shine through. Or we can do it the other way, where the universe continues to pound at that armor, saying lovingly, "You who are in there are my most beloved. Please Come out and be great in the life that I have created for you. God loves each of us. We are children of the Most High. We're on purpose with everything that we do and say, even if we judge it as wrong. There is a greater picture that is going on, and the idea that we could love planet Earth by holding her in our hearts, the idea that we can all find solutions to the challenges that we face, the idea that the default that we have created may be understandable but does not excuse bad behavior. We miss the mark again and again, opportunities for us to remember to love ourselves, to forgive ourselves, to accept that God didn't create any junk out of itself. God only created precious human beings for each of us to discover and celebrate. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Life is good, and so it is. Amen.